It's a glorious day for France. Poor Marie is with her two crying little daughters. Soldiers came to take their mother away from them. You can hear people outside marked by extreme anger and violent energy. But you can see here Marie Antoinette seems so free from emotional agitation or nervous tension as people are cursing and throwing things at her. But who is Marie Antoinette? And why are people so mad at her? According to my great-grandma, Marie Antoinette was the last queen of France prior to the French Revolution. She became known as Madame Deficit because the country's financial crisis was blamed on her lavish spending and her opposition to social and financial reforms. She was accused of being slutty, having illegitimate children, and harboring sympathies for France's perceived enemies. Now we know why people extremely dislikes her and can't wait that she'll be executed. And so it happens. But this film is not about Marie Antoinette. It is actually all about Napoleon Bonaparte, who is present there too. Being curious on how the execution of the Queen come about. Napoleon Bonaparte then was commissioned a second lieutenant in La Fère Artillery Regiment. Later that year, revolutionary leader Paul Barras has appointed Napoleon a senior gunner and artillery commander of the Republican forces to siege the Port Toulon, which was taken over by British Navy. After careful study and the assessments of the situation there in Toulon, Napoleon staged their attack at night while the British soldiers are partying and some are asleep, caught them unaware. French soldiers charging to the harbor wall bringing with them mortars. Why not bring it later as it gives them a hard time climbing the wall? Maybe bring it after successfully capturing the port, I don't know, we should not doubt Napoleon's wisdom. Napoleon bravely dashed his way to the high walls through the ladders entering the port, skillfully taking down several British soldiers one at a time like a true warrior. In fact, he can take this British army all by himself. Since he is the main character of this film, we give that to him. After capturing the port, they proceed to destroy all British ships. The following morning, on account of Napoleon's display of a great gallantry in battle, then Captain Napoleon Bonaparte was awarded the rank of a brigadier general. And we are sure our boy is full of high-spirited delight. One day Maximilien Robespierre is delivering his speech. But who is he? According to my great-grandpa, Robespierre was a prominent French lawyer and statesman, widely recognized as one of the most influential and controversial figures of the French Revolution. He faced criticism for purportedly trying to establish either a triumvirate or a dictatorship. Revolutionary leader Paul Barras deemed him not fit to be a leader and the people doesn't like him. He orders Robespierre be arrested. Robespierre refused to be arrested. Instead, he fired a pistol into his mouth but not wound himself mortally. After which, he is deposed and executed. Enough with this Robespierre. Let's go back to our boy. One night Napoleon is watching a comedy skit show when he notices Josephine de Beauharnais, an aristocratic widow. It seems he is enamored with her beauty. And the pair of cantaloupes perhaps. Josephine notices him steadily staring at her and she went to him asking why he is looking at her that way. It's so loud in the room so I couldn't hear what Napoleon said to Josephine. But from there, they frequently go out on a date. Seems what he said to Josephine is convincing. But one day when Napoleon is in Josephine's house and the two are having a conversation, when suddenly Josephine spread her legs and tells Napoleon,
"If you look down, you'll see a surprise. Once you see it, you will always want it."
I am not sure what she meant by that. But probably she is referring to her full-grown kitten. On another day, chaos are displayed on the streets. This bothers French leaders, including Napoleon, and want to restore stability. Again employing artillery, Napoleon suppresses these royalist insurrection on October 5, 1795. Finally, Napoleon and Josephine got married in a civil rights attended by someone close to them. And after the sumptuous wedding dinner, guess what? Of course, in July 1798, Napoleon is assigned to lead the invasion of Egypt. While they are winning the battle, he was informed that his wife is having an affair with a younger officer. Napoleon rushes home, abandoning his men. When he reached home, his wife is not there. That makes him furious. His wife arrives and his reaction is just rebuking her. I am expecting that he would beat her, squeeze her, pinch her tits. But eventually they are very calm, completely clear and fine. Napoleon drew together an alliance with the members of legislature Emmanuel Joseph Size and Roger Ducasse. They overthrew the Directory by a coup d'état on November 9, 1799. Napoleon becomes first consul of France, and eventually is crowned Emperor of the French by the Pope in 1804. On his coronation day, Napoleon audaciously puts the crown on his own head, which is not the tradition. But wait, his wife's lover spotted. I thought he is dead by now. Napoleon has all the powers to crush him, even castrate him. Napoleon forgave him perhaps. Hail Napoleon for being merciful. He doesn't mind sharing his wife with him. Now that Napoleon is the emperor, his advisor is quite concerned on who is going to continue the empire when he is gone. They believe the security of the empire and peace in the world depends upon an heir, which Napoleon don't have. Napoleon and Josephine's sex life are quite active and somewhat wild. Sometimes they do it conventionally, but most of the time they do it unconventionally. They do this stuff in regular basis, but still, Josephine shows no sign of giving him a child, a son. To end his misery, Napoleon's mother concocted a plan to impregnate a young woman that is waiting for him in the room to see which one of Napoleon and Josephine is dysfunctional. Foreign Minister Talleyrand suggests to Austria an alliance, though the Austrians dismiss the idea. A year later, Napoleon led his army for the Battle of Austerlitz. He outmaneuvered and outsmarted the joined forces of Austrians and Russians, forcing them to retreat over frozen lakes before bombarding the ice and drowning them, that led to their defeat. 1 year had passed. Napoleon's mother tells him the news that the young girl Napoleon slept with is already pregnant, proving that Josephine is infertile. He divorces her in 1810, publicly slapping her in the face when she initially refuses to read her portion of the decree, but the two remain on good terms and continue exchanging friendly letters. Things happen so fast, Napoleon marries Marie Louise of Austria, who bears a son 1 year later. Napoleon Bonaparte continued his quest to conquer the world. As Russian Emperor Tsar Alexander turned against him, he is forced to invade Russia. He commands the combined forces of France, Austria, Germany, and Poland. He prevails, despite bloody guerrilla resistance by Don Cossack forces at the Battle of Borodino. They proceed to Moscow and was surprised that the city is empty. At night the Russians covertly burned most of the city to deprive shelter for Napoleon's men during the winter. Napoleon retreats to France wintertime. In their retreat there had been breakdown in supplies. Many suffered sickness, desertion, and famine. Napoleon lost about 500,000 men. In 1814, the coalition forces of Austria, Prussia, Russia, and England, with the agreement of French council, forces Napoleon's abdication. He was exiled to Elba, a Mediterranean island in Tuscany, Italy. During Napoleon's exile, Russian Emperor Tsar Alexander visited Napoleon's ex-wife Josephine. Tsar Alexander seems to be seducing her with his good looks and power, and seems to be hitting on Josephine. After their conversation, they dance. And guess what? Sorry, they did it secretly. You may just extend your imagination. Let's go back to our boy. Napoleon read the papers about this Russian emperor seeing his former wife. He got furious and decided to go back to France and redeem what is rightfully his. Josephine in France. Napoleon escapes the island of Elba. Commandeered a ship for France. The Congregation of Allies were aware of the return of Napoleon to France, and they send troops to tell him to submit himself to authorities. Instead, these troops, who were Napoleon's former soldiers, were won back by him. Unknowingly to Napoleon, Josephine is very sick and in somewhat critical condition. Her doctor seems to know what is coming. But wait, is this guy Josephine's younger lover back then? Sweet guy, he is with her until the very last breath. But poor Napoleon was not able to do so. He arrived at Josephine's chateau, but it's too late. She's already gone. Only he saw there is Josephine's niece Hortense. At the Battle of Waterloo in June 1815, Napoleon, having amassed more troops, confronts the British army under the Duke of Wellington. French forces take the first move by bombarding cannons to the British. French infantry was deployed and French cavalry follows the charge. British Army's infantry squares strategy is somewhat working for the British and manage to defend well against French cavalry and suppresses them. Desperate Napoleon urges his remaining soldiers forward, but this advance is decimated by reformed lines of enemy infantry. The forces of Prussian Marshal Blücher arrive to reinforce Wellington, and the French are broken. As Napoleon retreats, he salutes Wellington. Napoleon is exiled, this time to the island of St. Helena in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and is seen jollying along with children. Napoleon dies in 1821, 6 years after his exile in St. Helena. But what is the cause of his death? According to my great-grand-uncle, Napoleon became depressed and more isolated, spending longer periods in his rooms, which further undermined his health. Napoleon had died of internal bleeding caused by stomach cancer, the disease that had killed his father. His final words were, "France. Army. Josephine."
Long live the